It's a hot, dry day in Punjab, and a 5-year-old boy is sitting in a field. While the adults talk, he is carefully taking small wooden sticks and driving them deep into the dirt, one by one. When an older friend of his father asks the boy what he's doing, the child looks up and gives a chilling answer. "I am sewing guns." That boy was Bhagat Singh, born in 1907 into a family of Sikh revolutionaries. At his dinner table, stories of the Ghadar Party and the fight against British occupation were standard daily conversation. By 1919, that environment had forged a fierce nationalism. At age 12, after British troops massacred unarmed civilians at Jallianwala Bagh, Bhagat visited the blood-soaked grounds. He scooped up the dark, stained earth into a small glass bottle and brought it home to worship. The child had committed himself to a path of resistance. He had the anger and he had the will. But raw, localized rage cannot dismantle the largest empire on earth. To actually fight back, he would need to forge a much more effective weapon. As a teenager, that defiance turned intellectual. Bhagat actively challenged his teachers and the colonial curriculum, arguing that Indians were denied their freedom by force, not because they were unworthy of it. He initially placed his hopes in Mahatma Gandhi's non-cooperation movement, but when Gandhi abruptly canceled the campaign following a violent clash, Bhagat grew deeply disillusioned. Waiting passively and pleading with the empire would never break its grip. In 1926, he built his first organizational weapon, the Naujawan Bharat Sabha. He recognized that to successfully mobilize the youth against British rule, young Indians also had to eradicate internal divisions like caste discrimination and religious superstition. By 1928, the tension in the streets was boiling over. Massive protests erupted against the British authorities and their exclusionary political committees. The state responded with brutal force. Police used lathis to beat the demonstrators, inflicting fatal injuries on a revered Indian leader, Lala Lajpat Rai. Bhagat and his comrades retaliated by assassinating a British police officer, J.P. Saunders. The physical guns of his childhood imagination were finally in his hands. But killing one officer brought massive police crackdowns, forcing them into hiding. Localized violence was easily contained by the state. It would never scale into a national awakening. Following the Saunders assassination, Bhagat Singh realized that physical retaliation was a tactical dead end. The death of one officer invited repression without educating the masses. To break the empire, he needed a platform, not just a pistol. He decided to use the British legal system as a megaphone for the revolutionary cause. On April 8, 1929, he and Batu Keshwar Dutt hurled a bomb directly into the Central Assembly in Delhi. They deliberately packed it with low-grade explosives and aimed for an empty aisle to ensure no one was harmed. The objective was to create a massive disruption, to force the British to acknowledge their presence. As they later declared in court, their aim was to make the deaf hear. They had every opportunity to escape in the chaos. Instead, they stood exactly where they were, throwing bundles of political pamphlets into the smoke-filled room, and they shouted a phrase that would soon echo across the entire subcontinent: "Inqilab Zindabad, long live the revolution." Bhagat Singh had evolved his arsenal. He abandoned covert assassination and weaponized the courtroom, transforming a bombing into a highly visible piece of political theater, designed to capture the attention of millions. The British quickly arrested him and prepared for trial. The empire assumed that by locking him in a cell, they had successfully neutralized the threat. Demanding to be treated as a political prisoner, he launched a grueling 116-day hunger strike. His body deteriorated, but his mind operated at peak capacity. Inside the prison, he read voraciously, producing a massive output of political theory. In his famous essay, Why I Am an Atheist, he dissected his own worldview with sharp, analytical precision. Even staring down a death sentence, he refused to rely on blind faith, religious dogma, or comforting myths. The empire could starve his stomach, beat his limbs, and eventually hang him, but they were unable to touch his intellect. Flesh can be destroyed, but well-articulated ideas are indestructible. On March 23, 1931, the British government led Bhagat Singh to the gallows. He was 23 years old. He walked to his execution with a smile. He knew the state could crush his flesh and bone, but they were powerless to execute his ideology. His execution became the final act of sowing. By ending his life on his own terms, he became a permanent rally cry for independence. The guns he sowed in those dusty fields as a child were the millions of radicalized young Indians who took to the streets, armed with the fire of his ideas. In exactly 23 years of life, Bhagat Singh proved that youth is never an excuse for inaction. A fearless idea remains the most dangerous, indestructible weapon on earth.